we actually have connectivity at 6 o'clock with all video location. So we will get this meeting started. We'll start with introductions and we'll start in Boone, and then we will move through the regions.
Thanks.
We have moderators first off from Smoky Mountain. I'm moderating here in Boone. Kathy Sanford is responsible for all the equipment in Asheville. Julie McClure is in Silva, and John Frazier is in Lenore. I am Jesse Smathers. I'm the Innovations Technical Director at Smoky Mountain LME MCO. This is our second Innovation Stakeholders meeting, and we'll start right down here at the end of the table.
I'm Christy Lupton from Joanne Prophet from Turning Point Services.
I'm Michael Nathan White from wherever. Joe.
I'm Robin Page, and I'm the IDD care coordinator in Boone and Avery.
I'm Roxy Rivers. I'm the new IDD care coordinator, RN in Wilkes.
And Michael, I didn't hear what you were.
Mike Blackburn, I'm a parent and a funny.
I'm Megan McLaughlin. I'm also
I'm Susan Lynn, I'm a parent.
I'm Ashley Crenshaw, and I'm a friend of a parent.
Robert Grouse, I'm community. Okay, we'll move now to Asheville.
I'm Tina Clark. I'm the Northern Region IDD Care Coordination Manager. So that's
Kathy
my home.
Roder, parent.
Jerry Rice, advocate.
Joe Yurchak, the Autism Society of North Carolina.
Roxanne Colwell, family member.
Tom Brackett, also family member.
Lynn English, QM with Smoky.
William E. Young Jr., Q Onus's Place, Asheville.
Nancy Baker, CPAC Chair, parent of an IDD son in Rutherford County.
Okay, now we'll move on out to the west, Silva.
Sabrina Haddock, parent.
I'm Kurt Vanderbilt. I'm parent guardian of two children, IDD and mental health. And I'm a CPAC member, so I'm not here as any official CPAC representation, but just out of my personal interest.
I'm Robin White. I'm the IDD clinical director at Smoky.
And I'm Julie McClure. I'm the family partner and I serve the Western region. That's Haywood, Jackson, Macon, Swain, Cherokee, Clayton, Graham County. Yes.
I'm Tammy Holbert, I'm a parent.
I'm Paige and I'm from Easter Seals.
I'm Kelly, teach at Western Carolina University and consult with the University Participant Program.
And I'm Candy Cook, the provider network.
We can't see you, Candy.
Here.
Yeah, another one. There you go.
There we go.
Let's see if I can make it. Look.
Oh,
There
all right, there you go.
There you go.
There.
Sorry.
Now we'll move on to the central region in Lenore. John.
I'm John Frazier. I'm the IDD Care Coordination Manager for the Central Region.
I'm Jennifer Lineberger with RAJ Health Services.
I'm Mary Short, my daughter Katie, parent.
Abby Markham from Colwell Upper 52.
I'm Ann Shading, a parent.
Okay, is that everyone? Great. I've now asked that everyone at the other sides please place your phones on mute while I go through just a few things before we get started and into the meat of the agenda. First thing I would like to do is touch on the goals of the NC Innovations waiver, just as a reminder of what the program's supposed to do and why we're here. And the goals outlined in the waiver are to value and support persons with disabilities to be fully functioning members of the community. And some terminology that I prefer to use instead of persons with disabilities is I like to use differently abled people. It's a different way of saying it. It's more of a positive spin. You'll hear me say that interchangeably with persons with disabilities as differently abled persons. Labor is also supposed to promote promising practices. And we're supposed to offer service options that increase community living opportunities and participation in communities for persons receiving the waiver. The waiver is expected to offer self-direction to the fullest extent possible. And it is also designed to increase community understanding and acceptance of persons that are differently able, and to allow them to develop natural support networks so that everything in their life is not necessarily a paid support. The goals of this Innovation Stakeholders Committee is to provide consultation on implementation of mandated policy. We really can't write the policy, but we can definitely inform its implementation. We're here to advocate for quality intervention and implementation of waiver services, represent the Smoky region, our 23 counties in state meetings if we get the opportunity. Sometimes we don't, but if we have the opportunity, we will definitely choose representatives to send to those meetings. And it's also supposed to be our charge to educate the community about home and community-based services. In your packet of information, you should have an agenda, and of that agenda, the first topic that I have identified is the creation of this committee. This is our second meeting, and as I like to say, we're building the plane as we're flying it. So you'll have to forgive us when we seem like we're not overly prepared, but that's really what we're doing. So I want to talk about the applications we've received and the possible makeup of the group in consideration of our charter. I want to provide you with some information regarding the listening sessions that are occurring with the Deputy Director of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disability Services, Dave Richard. 3 of these sessions have occurred statewide so far, and 2 of them have occurred in our region. I'm sorry, 1 of them in our region. We still have another coming up in our region. And there's people that are here tonight that have attended a couple of these sessions. We're going to talk some about individual and family-directed supports. That's the self-direction goal within the waiver. And you'll note that I had a title on my agenda where I mentioned employer or record. That's employer of record. We'll talk some about that. I want to share some information about direct support professionals in an effort to strengthen that community that's being led by benchmarks in the Institute Council on Developmental Disabilities. I want to provide some information about the Registry of Unmet Needs and touch on some things that are available for folks that are waiting for innovation services. At this time, I would like to ask anyone in Boone if they would like to add information or a topic to the agenda. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add? Okay. Since that's the case, we'll move on to Asheville. Does anyone in Asheville have anything they'd like to add to the agenda?
Maybe a brief overview of what's already happened so far, or we really haven't gotten into that one?
Roxanne asked if we could have a brief, maybe minutes of what happened at the last meeting.
Okay.
Just brief.
Doesn't have to be detailed.
Okay. I'll add that to the agenda right up at the top, okay? Anything else in Asheville?
Anything about budget? Budget?
You want to ask about budget? I don't. Jerry asked if you could add something about the budget.
Which budget?
For the innovation. For the innovation part.
Talking some about the individual budget and possibly the plans tied to that.
Yeah. Or,
Sounds good.
okay.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the individual. Are there anything on the waiver side that we're going to see him changing in the money?
Oh, It's a
I
budget
know the
change.
topic that you want.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. We'll add that to the bottom of the list.
It's always the top.
That way we'll run out of time, Jerry.
Yeah, you're hoping to, Jim.
Okay. Let's move on to Silva. Is there anything that anyone would like to add in Silva?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. Moving on to Lenore. John, does anyone have anything to add there?
I'm seeing a lot of shaking heads no.
Okay. Well, that's good. We'll move on then. The creation, well, I'm supposed to give a brief overview of the previous meeting. As I already mentioned, we're kind of building this plane as we go. And we didn't really have a designated note taker. Lynn did a good job of taking some notes about the different topics we discussed. We touched on some of the talking points that are available. It's been created already by Smoky, information about specialized consultative services, information about relative as direct support employee, notification about the listening sessions that we're just getting ready to start, the forming work groups at the state level to start making changes to the waiver, which that's some of the pieces that Dave Richard is presenting in his listening sessions. We discussed the changes to the co-pays and how innovations participants, it used to be waived in all circumstances. Now it's not necessarily waived, it's provider choice. And we talked about our desire to form this Innovations Stakeholders Committee and the fact that it's something that we're expected to put in place because of our DMA contract. How we establish it's really not clearly defined in our contract. We just need to make sure that we offer participants, providers, all the stakeholders within the system an opportunity to provide input to implementation of the Innovations Waiver. I think that is a pretty good brief overview of what occurred in the last meeting. Does anyone have any questions about that? I'll start here in Boone. Any questions? Any questions in Lenore? John?
More shaking heads no.
Okay. Any questions in Silva? Okay, I'll take that as a no too. Any questions in Asheville? Did that answer your question, Roxanne?
Thank you. No question,
Okay.
but we did cover pretty extensively the level 1 incident reports and backup staffing.
Oh, yes, we did. Thanks for pointing that out. We talked about that a lot, which that's being talked about in the listening sessions. That topic's come up, and it'll continue to come up about clarifying exactly the pieces. But fortunately, we're not going to talk about it any further today, unless there's questions.
I won't ask you.
Okay. Oh, I didn't see you there, Jane. Okay. You're kind of off the camera.
Hi.
All right. Moving to the first item on the agenda, the creation of our Stakeholders Committee. We have received 22 total applications. Our goal, when we first proposed this in our charter, was to, let me find the right piece of paper. Create a committee of 25 persons. Our goal was to have 6 members from each region. We have the 4 regions in Smoky, the Western Highlands Legacy, the North, West, and the Central region. We wanted 1 member on the whole group of 25 to be appointed by CFAC. We wanted 4 participants from each region. Participants are family members, and 2 providers from each region. We have received 22 applications, and that breaks down as follows. From the Central Region, we've received 2 applications from providers. From the Northern Region, we have received 6 total applications. 1 participant, 1 family member, one family member of a person on the Registry of Unmet Needs, and 3 providers. From the Western Region, we've received 4 applications, and that's 1 family member, one family member of a person on the waiver, 1 of a person that's waiting for the waiver, and 2 providers. From the Western Highlands Legacy Region, we've received applications from 4 providers, 5 family members, and 1 participant. So all in total, we have 11 participants or family members that have made application and 11 providers. Our goal was to have a larger number of family members and participants than providers. So the first thing that I would like to get feedback from the group would be about what kind of changes should we make to maybe the proposed outcome or makeup of the group so that we have a higher level of participation from family members. Like one thing that I was thinking is maybe limit the group to 4 persons from each region and only allow 1 provider representative from each region. Family membership be 3 from each region and 1 CFAC appointee, and that makes a total of 17, which would mean our quorum would be just having 9 people present to vote. Are there any other thoughts here in Boone about how we could make this group up?
How are you getting the information out as to the fact that this exists? Family members.
Okay, that's a good question. We, in your packet today, you have the flyer that shows the next 2 dates of the meeting. There's information posted on our website. Information's going out in our provider communication, and information's going out through our news you can use, and it's also going out through the CFAC. And care coordination staff are delivering flyers about the meetings. So it's possible that we could just hold our membership open and go for this larger group. That's definitely one option. But I would like to at some point get up to where we have I would like to issue letters to folks that they're on the committee, asking them to participate on the committee for a year by the end of this month.
As far as family members, I know we found out about this Jacob meeting from Michael, actually, at our family support group meeting, which was the 2nd Friday of this month. I hadn't heard about it before then. So we hold it just a little bit longer for families.
Okay.
A little bit more. And then I got the email from Shore, Eagle Rec.
Yeah,
That helps us out dates and everything, so that's why we're here.
Okay, so we have a movement, or a suggestion here in Boone to hold it open at least another month.
Can you just, I'm relatively new to this. What is the news you can use? How is that distributed, or what's the method of communication?
It goes out to several listservs, right? Isn't it sent out to listservs by email throughout Smoky? Not just throughout Smoky, but throughout anybody that's contacted Smoky and indicated that they're interested in information about Smoky.
So is that driven even by, maybe registering through the access line of Smoky?
Okay, I'm looking to Christy because I'm not talking. So I need to communicate the best way to get signed up for the news you can use.
I've gotten my child on the registry of unmet needs, so Smoky's aware that we're in some fashion seeking services. So it would be nice, because we didn't find out about this until we happened to go to, for my family, the first support group meeting. If there is an email, a way to communicate with this email directly of Smoky if we are on these lists.
Listservs.
Yeah. Very similar to the way you communicate with providers with communication bulletins. It's a mass email that's sent out to all providers. Very similar, you can do the same thing with families, parents, participants. And that way we would know.
It's almost like we could, theoretically, we could create a way for folks, like right now, people can sign up to access our provider communication on the website. They can log in, put their name and their email address, and then every time a provider communication goes out, they receive that information.
Exactly.
So something that's similar to that for families.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Because then it doesn't require, you know, it's kind of hard, even though we are in this virtual age, it is hard to kind of remember to go and check the website. All of
Oh,
the
yeah.
information. So it's really convenient when that information is coming to you
Okay,
directly.
that's very good feedback.
You can join news you can use from Smoky's website. Just go to families and then it'll click on news you can use, and down at the bottom it gives you all the archives for the last couple of years, and at the bottom click on joining our mailing list.
There is a way already? Okay, good, that's good to know, so you can do it through the news you can use.
Communicated to families, is that directly through, like, just because we are new to this, you know, unless I was here tonight, I wouldn't know that information, and I have been trying to get connected with services, but it's been a good 2 months or more. So how do people know to do that? You know, I have called Smoky and that was my entry point for services with the access line. So I think like if we could close a gap somehow there, if we've contacted the access line, then somehow already be linked into information such as that instead of having to go and kind of figure it out ourselves. Because in this world, there's already, within this world of services like this, there's already so much unknown. There's already so many things we don't know how to access. So if that gap can be closed, you know, as soon as we are calling the access line for services or placing my child on the registry of unmet needs, link that already to, you know, our information that we're providing you to give us the information.
So like maybe
Like an extra question.
an extra question and access, like if you're interested.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's.
And then eligibility when they are enrolling, that could be another question.
Give you the option to either opt in to receive an email or opt out.
And I think it would be good at that point too to have a little bit of explanation, because, you know, even if you think about all the other forms and applications you fill out with other things, that is one of the questions. You may say no because you don't want to be bombarded with information, but you may not realize what you're saying no to. You may not realize that the emails are, you know, going to be giving you information about services available, new types of funding, etc.
Yes, I think that's an excellent idea. Okay.
There's some
Anything else
suggestions
here,
here.
Boo? Yeah, I'm getting ready to move to some other spots. So who said there's some suggestions here? We'll start there.
Asheville?
Is that Kathy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jesse, I have a question. You're talking about one CFAC member. We have 4 CFACs. I can take this back to the steering committee, and the steering committee may make the choice to make the one decision. I'm a little bit concerned when you say one CFAC member and we have 4 different CFACs who now meet 6 months out of the year all totally on their own, but I'll be glad to take this back to the steering committee and have a meeting.
So you're saying that we should designate one CFAC per region?
Well, I can take it back to the steering committee and see what they say. We will be
Okay.
meeting, but if not, if you're just going to say one, then coming up with one from 4 different individual CFACs, I think we may have an issue. But I will have a conference call with the steering committee and see what they want to do.
Okay.
Jesse, this is.
I just think if we do want.
Well, 1 second. Let's finish in Asheville and then I'll come back.
Hey, Jesse, this is Joe.
Anything else in Asheville?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is Joe. I know we're going to talk about the empowerment of direct care providers later on, but it'd be kind of nice to maybe get a slot or 2 of for direct care providers that might want to attend or be a member, since they get affected by the waiver as well.
Okay.
Jesse, it's Jane.
In other words, communicate it to direct support professionals in case they want to attend.
Yes.
Anything else in Asheville?
Jesse, it's Jane. I know it's difficult to get a lot of stakeholders involved, but since you're gonna have a voting board and you've got such a varied group of individuals from mild to profound to AFLs to homebound to medically fragile to supported living, is there any way that we can try to get a real diversified group that includes all these individuals so that it's kind of an equal playing field when things are voted on and suggestions are made? And I know
So try to look like, as far as community or participant and family participation, ensure that we're covering the wide spectrum that serves the waiver because of the wide variety of people that receive services through the waiver.
right,
Did I restate that correctly?
that's exactly right.
Okay, okay. That's a good comment too. Anything else in Asheville?
One other thing, this talks about departments of social services, lead education agencies. What have we done to recruit any of those stakeholders?
Other than send information out on our listserv to those groups, we really haven't done anything beyond that.
Well, under the category of providers, is that enough to be a direct support professional, or does it need to be an agency director of a provider of sorts?
That's a different topic, that direct support professionals. As far as providers, it doesn't have to be, like a provider representative from a region could be a direct support professional, it could be an agency director. Okay, anything else in Asheville? We will move to Lenore then. Anything in Lenore?
Yes. Hi, Jesse. It's Mary Short.
Hey, Mary.
I'm sort of, I guess, confused about who it is exactly this stakeholder committee is reporting to. I mean, this document keeps saying that the ISC is informing. Okay, informing who? I thought this group was supposed to be reporting to the board of directors, the Smoky Mountain Board of Directors, but I don't see that anywhere. So if you expect family members to be involved, I mean, CFAC doesn't get the job done. So if this group isn't going to be reporting directly to the board of directors, then aren't we all kind of wasting our time as family members?
Okay. Hold on one second. I want to ask a question so that I possibly can be able to answer your question. Okay, Mary? Nancy,
Yes.
as far as CFAC goes, does CFAC do you do a report to the board through CFAC?
Yes.
Okay, so it would be reasonable for us to request the opportunity to report to the board through this committee?
Yes.
Okay, so Mary, I'll put that down and take it to the group to ask that this committee get to report to the board also.
So this is a subcommittee of the CFAC.
Well, I think that that's the idea behind it originally, but I can take back that the group wants more feedback than that and wants to go directly to the CFAC, or to the board.
Because it also states under purpose, that last sentence, the ISC, which is this, the Innovation Stakeholder Committee, will work closely with the Innovations Committee. So who's the Innovations Committee then?
The Innovations Committee are all the
It's different than
people.
this.
Well, the Innovations Committee are all the people that are employed with Smoky that deal directly with innovations. I'm on that committee. I actually chair that committee. Robin Van Wy, Christy Pruis, Kathy Sanford, Lynn English, and Anita Ledford, Rachel Smith, Allison Farrington, and Neely Alexander.
And does that committee ever report to the board of directors?
No, that committee, our Innovations Committee, reports directly to the Services Management Committee, and it reports all internal committees and the IDD cross-functional team. Tested my memory.
Well, you forgot me, Jesse, you failed.
Oh, and I forgot Julie McClure, she's on the committee too.
Well, it'd just be nice if the website would sort of clearly have like, it would just be nice.
Okay, well, and I'm taking these things down.
I'll
You've been
ask the
heard.
board when I see them on Thursday at the board of directors meeting at the DoubleTree in Asheville at 4:30 for public comment.
Okay. All right. Anything else in Lenore?
I think that's it, Jesse.
Okay. Let's see. We need to move on to Silva. And Julie McClure, the person I forgot on the committee.
How about that? I'm not only an employee, I'm a parent.
She's the most vocal person on the committee too.
Yes, I am.
Any comments from Silva?
I'd like to make a comment. I think one of your suggestions initially was shrinking the size to help meet the makeup that or the minimum application. And I think that's the opposite from what you really want to do.
Okay.
I think it's just an awareness problem. Even though I'm involved with CFAC and I have two children that are served by Smoky, I was unaware of the first, and that's not your fault, it's my fault. But nevertheless, I think I'm an illustration that this early in the implementation, I wouldn't be surprised that you've got less than the number of applications you'd like to have. And part of that maybe, I'm guessing that your first meeting was in August. Yes, no?
Yeah.
It was at the very end of July, actually.
Okay, middle of summer vacations, all that stuff going on. I think you could be very hopeful to get a lot more applications than what you have in hand. That's all I can say that.
Okay. So, any other comments on Silva?
Can I make one, Jesse?
Sure.
Okay, is it possible for us to maybe do a mailing to all the innovations participants? I know it's costly, but if we did it at least one time to make sure people knew about it.
What we always do. Let's see. I got down the idea of mailing. We don't always do it. We do it on some topics, but not necessarily one like this. Let's see, and I think Roger had a comment. I'll come back to Asheville. Do you remember what your or Asheville? I'm in Boone.
It was just an observation because it is wonderful that 4 CPAC members came to Asheville, and we want to have more participants anyways. And so if I'm reading this correctly, there's 25 total members, 6 from each region, and 1 appointed by CPAC.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking the intent is to have at least 1 member from CPAC, but everyone's welcome to be a voting member, just normally a CPAC person.
Right. Correct.
That's kind of what I was.
The intent, one person would be the idea behind what's written, which it does draft because we're building a plane. Is that one person would be identified by CFAC to go back and report to CFAC. That's kind of the idea behind it. So let me see if I can come back, and Michael, do you have anything?
Does it filter itself through feedback before it reaches the board? Or it doesn't even reach the board? That was one question.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to do.
The other thing, does this reflect that you guys do a better job of reaching providers? I wonder if that's easier for
Well,
Jesse, we couldn't hear the,
you know,
the question or the statement that were being
basically,
made.
he made the comment that does this reflect that, well, first off, the question about it being filtered through CFAC before it goes to the board, the information that comes from this committee, and also the number of providers that we have received application from versus the number of families. Does this reflect that Smoky does a better job at reaching providers than they do family members? And the truth is, we do a better job of reaching providers because they contract directly with us. And that's what we're trying to improve, is the way we reach out to families. So I'm going to go back and summarize what I have heard. And Robin's taking notes because we have a designated note taker this time. And she's very good at it, much better at it than I am. But I've heard that it would be good that if when families first contact Smoky, we create a listserv, or we give them the option of being added to the listserv so that they can start receiving the weekly newsletter, if it's weekly or however often it goes out. And, you know, letting them have the choice to opt out. We've heard keeping the enrollment open until we have more participants and a better chance of communicating it to family members. And wanting to give the group true voice, as in get it actual, instead of directly to CFAC, having it report directly to our board with the information that we discuss and ideas that we cover. And instead of having just one designated CFAC, at least allowing CFAC members from all of the regions. And rather than shrinking the size of the program or the committee, keep it open to make it as large as we can, as far as the numbers that we've already suggested. And trying to include some direct support professionals, communicating it to them also. Making sure that the group of participants that are represented are as diversified as the persons that the waiver refers or serves. And trying to get more lead education agency and DSS involvement. So maybe instead of just sending them emails, making phone calls and actually reaching out to them. And I think that that's all I captured. Is that a pretty good picture of the ideas around this? So I'm going to suggest that we leave everything open and come back and revisit this topic at the next open meeting, and there will not be any letters assigning folks. Are there any objections to that? All right. Moving on. Now I've lost my agenda. Let's see, what's happening. In your packet, you've got a flyer about one of the remaining listening session in our area. It's the one with the guy holding his hand to his ear. This is the opportunity for everyone that's interested. I know it's a very long drive from Boone, but if you're interested in speaking with Dave Richard or sharing your concerns, he is the Deputy Secretary of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. He will be at Haywood Community College October 15th from 6 to 8. It is in the auditorium on that site. We had a listening session in Marion at McDowell Tech on September 17th. By my count, there were 4 Smoky employees present, 4 division, employees present and about 20 stakeholders other than employees present. And of those 20 stakeholders, roughly 8 were providers and 12 family members. And that's just my guesstimate. I'm probably not completely accurate. There was, it wasn't very clear, the signage about the location. There were a few hiccups. Folks had the opportunity to voice concerns and comments today. He will be doing it again, like I say, in Haywood County. He has indicated that they're willing to consider additional listening sessions, but they are on the timeline. I also attended the listening session in Hickory with partners. That was September 4th. They had roughly about 85, 70 people probably present. There was some people that had attended both. There's a common theme that I have heard in these meetings, and that's that folks want more flexibility in the waiver, fewer restrictions on the limits around relatives as provider, better communication regarding service decisions, denials, and appeals. Family members having more of an advocate, because care coordination is not necessarily that. Ideas around community guide have been voiced to cover that. There's been comments about increasing the service opportunities for persons waiting, concerns about individual budgets and tiered waivers. And those are just a few of the things that have stuck in my head. I know that I've seen Mary at one of the listening sessions, and Nancy. Would either of you like to share anything about the listening sessions that you heard?
I can say that this is very short, I can say that I videotaped both the Hickory and the Marion session, and I received a written report from a family that attended the Winston-Salem session. I posted my videos to my YouTube site, so they are available. And I will say, I thought one of the clear concerns was over care coordination and getting us back to independent targeted case management, not having our care coordinators receive their paycheck from the same people who do utilization review and the same people who do reconsideration requests, and that seemed to be a big concern I heard.
Okay, thank you, Mary. And do you have your website handy, or should we just Google Mary Short at YouTube, or?
No, it's not under my name. It's IDD Caregiver Voices, all one word.
Okay.
IDD Caregiver Voices, all one word.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mary. Nancy, do you have anything to add?
Well, I tried to listen kind of with 3 hats on while I was there. And I listened as a parent with an IBD. I tried to think about what I could take back to CFAC, and also what I could take back to the board. And I do understand, or if I understood Mary talking about CFAC, CFAC has a very rigid requirement for the purpose of why we're there, which is an advisory to the board. And I will be taking the concerns back and talking with board members. I was surprised with the turnout. I thought there would have been a lot more. So I kind of felt like that out of what we had, maybe there was a whole lot that is satisfied with the services they're getting. We may end up getting more over in Haywood County, but I was surprised that the turnout was as low as it was down in Marion.
Okay. Did anyone at Silva go to the meeting?
No.
Okay. All right, well, I encourage everyone to attend the October 15th session from 6 to 8:30.
How do we find out about more listening sessions if they do become
Available. Well, do I have your email attached now to the Innovation Stakeholders group that I've completed?
Yes.
If you put your name on these sign-in sheets with your email, I'm adding those to a listserv that I'm creating, so these will be sent out.
It has like a broader, think about a broader community of people that, just like myself, that just happen to stumble upon this. How would communities know?
Well, and that's the part that we've got to work on, is giving y'all the option to log into that News You Can Use flyer, and that's available now. And one thing that I'm going to do is everybody that's on my innovations list, I will send an email out with the link that you can log in or create your choose to receive the views you can lose. Views you can lose. Views you can use. Slow down. Okay. The next time I do one of these, I'm going to sleep until 10 It's too hard to get up at 6 a.m. and do this. Okay. All right, so I encourage you to attend that. We have a really big room to fill in Haywood County, and I'm hopeful that a lot of folks from Buncombe will drive over. Historically, when they've done sessions, they've just done one like in Asheville, Charlotte. They've just done 4 statewide. So Dave, this is a huge undertaking. He's doing 13 of these, and he's doing it because he feels it's important, and that's what he signed up for. He wants your voices to be heard.
Are there any others that maybe aren't, in the Smoky region, that are, maybe closer?
There are others, and they may be closer to you because they could be in Cardinal region, which might be closer than all the way out in Haywood County. So I will. I have information about that I can send too.
Jesse, that one's
it is on CHX.
Yeah, if you click on what's new, which I do every day to see what's out there, you'll get like these type of communication bulletins and information.
And Jesse, that one's on Wednesday down in Charlotte at Lifespan. We'll be down there. The next listening session.
We have another
This
question.
Wednesday, James?
This Wednesday, yes.
Another question?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Jerry?
Yeah, Jesse. Communication is the key here, right?
Yes, sir.
Why don't we look at notifying anybody that's on the innovation waiver, they got a phone number. What about doing like the schools do and have an alert to go out a few days ahead that notifies them? Then you're not out all that mailing money, and you're going to get people to listen. And then at the listening session, as well as your committee, have it fixed to where they can phone in and listen to what's being said, and then have a way for them to get the information back to a certain spot.
Huge number of people that are on the wait list, not people that are already being served, but I think that voice is a good voice to be heard as well, or to be included in the loop and all this stuff as we're waiting for children and family members to be served.
Don't leave nobody out. I'm just saying give this a way of an avenue to be heard for anybody, really.
Mm-hmm.
If we can do it for politics, we can do it for this. Because what I see here, the timelines that Dave Richardson is setting out, it's always forming committees, and time you get them formed, they've already set policy and then the law, and then the committee ain't done nothing but got dictated to. So we need to get ahead of the horse here. I'm an advocate, by the way. And a good one.
Well, you called me Mike for 3 years, you know that, don't you?
That's all right, you still ain't changed.
Jerry and I have been working together since 1996, haven't we, Jerry?
We've been working.
Well, okay.
Okay.
We've been working. Okay.
We still working on it.
Yeah, maybe he keeps me working. Okay. So I think that sums up everything regarding those listening sessions. We definitely need to do a better job of communicating them. Moving on, one of the goals of the waiver is to offer self-direction to the fullest extent possible. Self-direction is a way to give persons that are receiving services more control over their staff, choices over hiring and firing, pay rates, those kind of things. In innovations, we can't make it easy and call it self-directions. Self-direction is called individual and family-directed supports. And individual and family-directed supports offers two options: agency with choice and employer of record. The agency with choice model is currently available in all the Smoky counties, and we also have standardized everything around agency with choice with partners and center point, so that if a provider is identified as an agency with choice provider and with one MCO, they're an agency with choice provider with all three. And there's documents on the Smoky website about agency with choice. In the agency with choice model, the person receiving services or their family member becomes a managing employer, and the person that, and the agency with choice is the common law employer. So the managing employer informs service delivery. They select who's hired and fired. They consult the provider regarding pay rate. They do not set pay rate. And they coordinate with the provider to make sure certain trainings occur, but they're not responsible for those trainings. In the agency with choice model, a qualified professional is still available through the agency with choice to provide services to, or to help coordinate services with the family and the participant. As I've mentioned, that's available throughout all three of the Western Region partnerships, which is Partners Behavioral Health Management, Centerpoint, and Smoky. In the Smoky area, we are very close. We are already in the process of rolling out the employer of record model. The employer of record model is a full form of self-direction. In this model, the participant or their family member becomes the actual employer of the staff that works with the individual. They do all the hiring, the firing, the training. They set the pay rate. They keep the personnel files. They do the documentation that the QP does in the agency with choice model, qualified professionals in the agency with choice model. And they work very closely with a financial services agency. That financial services agency receives the documentation from the employer of record, and they pay the staff the rates that are determined by the employer of record. Yes, it requires a lot of work on both employer's part, but the benefit is that the employer of record can pay staff much better. and sometimes increases longevity of staff. It also, there's evidence that when participants self-direct their own services to this extent, that they tend to do a better job of directing the services than the system does, because they take more pride in what's occurring. They take more responsibility. They choose when they need staff and for what reasons they need staff, instead of that being dictated in a way to them. So, all that being said, I want everyone to know that by all of our documents for employer of record, this is another plane that we're flying as we build, are up with the Division of Medical Assistance. They're very close to being improved. We have a provider, GT Independence, that's working as a financial supports agency, and they are they're doing self-direction in 4 other states. They're very prepared to help us go through this process. And we're training families to start this. And our first family may start as early as November 1 as an employer of record. Some of the first steps for families that are interested in this model that are receiving innovation services include sitting down with me and your care coordinator for more of an overview about the steps that are required. And then we'll be approving community guide training for this, for employer of record with GT Independence, and they will work with you until they issue a certificate indicating that you're ready to self-direct services. It's Smoky is the first MCO other than Cardinal to venture into employer of record self-direction, and it's pretty exciting. Just because it is an evidence-based best practice for persons with intellectual disabilities and increases opportunity for control over a person's life and their opportunity to exercise full rights of citizenship, and that's the beauty of it. So, are there any questions here in Boone regarding employer of record or agency of choice?
If one model doesn't work for a particular family, is it easy to switch back?
Yes. Yes. Like the training piece is you're trained for 2 months to do agency with choice as a managing employer, 3 months as employer of record. If you start out as an agency with an agency with choice and step into employer of record and choose to move back to agency with choice, you can, or you can choose to move back to provider directed supports, which is the traditional model of service delivery.
And did you already say you didn't have to self-direct every few months?
Oh, I did not say that. You don't have to self-direct every service. You could choose to self-direct in-home skill building, but not personal care. Right, or you might want to choose to self-direct in-home skill building and personal care, but not respite. Well, for example, you can't self-direct services like residential supports and day supports because those are facility-based services. Okay, any other questions in Boone? Okay.
And Margaret and I talked about it, you know, be on the list.
Okay, yes, I got your email and your care coordinator will be following up with me. Okay, let's see, let's move to Lenore. Any questions in Lenore?
Jesse, this is Abby Paula. Just a question as a provider. One of my greatest nightmares, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but time consuming and making sure we're always up to date is my training component, being on the trainer for our facility. When somebody does this sort of record, will they be responsible for all the same type of training that an agency does?
Yes, ma'am. That's why it's a lot of work.
Well, here's my question. How did they go about getting all of their training information together? Because I'd like to know how they're doing that. It might help for an agency. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, seriously, you know, that's just.
I understand
Nightmare.
the thing, they establish, basically they just require the trainings that are outlined in the waiver. Each employer sets their own standards for certain pieces. They don't necessarily have company policies, but they have to maintain the trainings that are outlined in the waiver and everything that's required by NC legislation. And the community guide is responsible for working with the family to ensure that they have the opportunities to ensure staff are trained.
Thank you. Good question.
Have another one.
Because community guides are required with the employer of record model.
I have a quick question. I'm a parent of a potential recipient of services. Did I hear you say that if an agency is approved through the Smoky Mountain region, then they are also automatically approved through partners and through the others?
That's not exactly what I said. And I do need to clarify. If an agency that provides IDD services is identified by Smoky to provide agency with choice self-direction services, they are eligible to provide agency with choice self-direction services in all 3 MCOs. That's the only circumstance. And I'm clarifying because we have providers that are enrolled to provide services with Smoky that are not enrolled with CenterPoint. And there's actually some work with regard to the Western Region Partnership for credentialing that will make it so that once a provider is credentialed or enrolled with one, they're technically enrolled with all 3, but we are not to that point yet. But we are there with the agency with choice model.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Nothing else in Lenore? Okay. Moving to Silva. Any questions about self-direction or individual and family-directed supports?
Yes, this is Kurt Vanderman. Is there a document that you can direct me to where I can read more to get a better understanding of these 2 formats for the individual and family-directed supports? I don't entirely understand, particularly the agency with choice, and I'm not asking you to explain it again.
Okay.
Really, I understand things a lot better when I can read it and reread it, reread it. So, and I don't want to, I hope to
All right.
direct it to
There are,
stuff.
we have a draft manual for employer of record, and we have, that I can send you. And we also have there's a manual about agency with choice self-direction on our website, and I'll send you the link to that. Actually, I'll just send all that information to everyone whose emails I have in this Innovation Stakeholders, and y'all can choose to read it or not. Okay?
Is this, is that for folks that are getting the innovations, or is that's only for the innovation?
Yes.
Not for people that are on the waiting?
Right. And you're already starting to pick up the acronymese language that we speak with your IFDS talk about the AWC and EOR. So you're going to fit right in. Okay. Anything else in Silva? All right, let's move on to Asheville.
We're
Any
waiting on the
comments,
budget.
Asheville?
We're waiting on the budget.
We're getting there, Jerry.
We gotta have money to operate.
Watch. I don't think I'm going to have to drag it out to where I can avoid it. Okay. So no questions there. The next item I have on the agenda is direct support professionals. And primarily I've placed this on the agenda because the NC Council on Developmental Disabilities has funded a grant with benchmarks, and they are attempting to develop a North Carolina chapter of the National Alliance of Direct Support Professionals. that would require that direct support professionals, direct care workers, sign on to this group. They would be adhering to a set of ethics. And, you know, ultimately the idea is that the processes that would occur with the National Association of Direct Support Professionals would be to professionalize direct support jobs so that the quality would be better, the quality for services. And there's ideas about creating a database similar to that exists for CNAs, where once a direct support professional gets certain trainings in place, those trainings follow the person from provider to provider, instead of each provider having to redo trainings over and over again. All of this is in the initial stages, but one of the changes that has to occur is probably the change in the language. So instead of personal care workers and direct staff, the language that you'll be seeing Smoky use is direct support professionals, DSPs, instead of CNAs. Of course, a CNA could be a DSP. But you'll see the language direct support professionals more and more from Smoky. And there will be more information coming about the attempts to create this national alliance, or the North Carolina chapter of direct support professionals. There's some real positives about it, because the idea is creating a basic framework of training so that you might have a better pool of staff to pull from. It is recognized also that money would have to follow this, and there's talk about that piece, because you can't raise standards and not reimburse people. So, I mean, that discussion's there. I just wanted to put that on everyone's radar and know that to this group I will be forwarding information about direct support professional training, because in some cases family members are direct support professionals, and family members should know also, if they're not providing services, they should have an idea of what's going on in the system around the people that are working for their loved one. Are there any questions about direct support professionals or any of the information I just shared? And we will start the boom as we have all night. Well, I need some questions. I don't want to have to talk about individual budgets. That's what I said. I'm just playing with Jerry. I'm completely ready to talk about it. Asheville, any questions about DSPs?
Are you looking at saving money there on that direct support, taking it out the way you are, or is it going to cost more?
Actually, I think that the idea is to improve quality, and improving quality would ultimately lead to costing more, is my opinion. But the idea is to take some of the burden from providers so that the direct support professional would be able to travel with credentials. Like home health agencies now can hire a CNA, and they know that CNA has the basic requirements to work with the individual. And that's the same concept for the DSP, except so that then the providers, the only training that would really be necessary for some folks would be the person-specific trainings.
Is this going to lead to licensing of these individuals so that there's accountability?
I don't know that it would ever lead to licensing, but it very well could lead to a form of credentialing, where that if you know the person's a member of the chapter of direct support professionals, they have to meet at least a floor. I can't say that it's a ceiling, but they would have to have certain things in place, certain minimum requirements.
And then would there be like annual requirements?
Some of the things would require annual requirements, some biannual, but it would be a deal where like people would be trained in interventions at a specific level. They would have their bloodborne pathogens training possibly, or their, you'd know they had their high school diploma, and you would know that they had first aid training. All the requirements that are outlined is the idea behind it. I want to mention this is really in its infancy in this state. Benchmarks is in the first year of a 3-year grant with the goal to have the product at the end of the 3rd year. Okay? I just wanted to make folks aware of what's going on in the system.
Hey,
Okay.
Jesse,
Yes?
the CNAs, to be a CNA, you don't actually have to go take the class. You can take the test, and if you pass, you're a CNA. Depending on if you're 1 or 2, you're gonna try to do the same thing with the DSPs? Allow
That's
them to
some of the
test it?
discussion about it.
Do you know what states
Is that
are already
James
doing
Play
it?
on?
Yes, it is, Jesse.
Okay, I can't see you on video, and I didn't hear you introduce yourself.
I'm hiding.
Leaning back, it's more pleasant this way.
Do you know other states who have actually done it?
What's that?
Do you know other states who have actually already have this in place?
Ohio is the example that they keep referencing.
Jesse, we have a question in Silva.
Yes.
Hey, Jesse, so this is kind of related, but kind of not related. What can providers do for Smoky to help out with the capping of hours due to the Healthcare Act for our direct support professionals?
Well, you know, what Smoky is going to be offering a training November 6th, where representatives from the Department of Labor, it's going to be the training in Asheville at the Western Carolina University, Asheville. And who's doing this to me? We needed that.
Yes.
Oh. But what is being referenced is the, I'm just all torn up now. Want to stop and breathe for a second. I can't believe I came up here without a bottle of water. So, the Department of Labor is going to do trainings that talk about companionship, its impact on the 40 hours. Now, the Affordable Care Act, effective January 1, is going to require providers that have a certain number of employees to provide health insurance to any full-time employees. And some providers are making the choice to make all employees part-time employees because of how this will impact their pay or what their business model. So there's going to be lots of working pieces with it, and I can't answer all the questions. I just know that we're going to be offering a training where the Department of Labor talks about companionship, shared living, and wage and hour limits. And that will be November 6th. And I'm also working with Partners and Centerpoint. They plan on offering the same training in their regions. Because everyone knows it's going to greatly impact the system, especially if the providers make the choice to only have part-time employees, because we already have enough of a challenge finding employees.
You said November the 6th?
Yes.
I know.
Now, when we have the...
I know it's not
Someone
your
here in Lenore
choice.
pointed out someone here in Lenore pointed out that that's also the date of the supported employment meeting that Smoky's having, so there's some conflicts with folks there.
Okay.
That's in Asheville also, Jesse.
Well, I think they're both 3-hour trainings, and one's in the morning and one in the afternoon.
Okay, maybe you say that, all right.
I haven't seen it up on the website yet.
And I might have the date wrong, but I'll definitely communicate it to everyone.
I know this
I have a comment. In
Yes.
Lenore, Mary It's my understanding that it's not too late to contact the United States Department of Labor and ask them to delay the implementation 40-hour rule. I mean, the overtime and minimum wage rule that the National Association of State Directors of Medicaid Services have banded together to request the DOL delay the implementation of the minimum wage overtime rule. So whether or not it's going to happen on January 1st, I don't know.
Okay.
That was done in April, and there's not a response.
We have
Okay.
a question in
So,
Asheville. I have a question, Jesse. I know it's not Smoky policy and it's federal policy, but if providers go to part-time staff, is that not going to greatly impact the individuals that those providers are serving? Because there's not enough providers now, and you're going to part-time to avoid paying time and a half.
No, actually, what, I think you're talking two different things. The part-time issue that is happening is because of the Affordable Care Act. Anybody that works 30 hours has to be offered insurance, and it can't be more than 10% of their wage.
But that's still, if they're going to part-time,
Right,
it's going to
but you're talking
affect-
two different things.
Right.
It's not the DOL
Okay.
thing, it's
Right.
Affordable Care.
But it's also if you go to the Department of Labor and they have to pay time and a half, then they're gonna cut back to less than over 40 hours, so they don't have to pay time and a half. What are we doing to protect the individual? I mean, what is gonna be in place if this comes about?
Well, the Affordable Care Act is here, unfortunately.
Right.
So people are gonna get under 30 hours a week. I mean, it's just business thing. There's nothing Smoky or anybody can do except.
But I mean, is there a
ask
plan
them.
in place to help protect the individuals because of this?
Why would
Question.
You can't, no. It is what it is, and either a big employer will do it, become a big employer, or they won't. So there is nothing that's gonna happen that's positive for our family members.
Good.
Jesse?
Okay.
Jesse?
Yeah, you see, like, as far as the plan in place, I don't know what the plan is. I'll definitely make everyone I've already voiced this concern at Smoky and our operations and at management team, and I'll continue to voice it, and we will see. There's usually, anytime something's implemented, there's usually a delay. And there's also, different providers will choose to do different things. Some will choose to find a way to pay for health insurance, others will not. So we'll get a whole variety of different things. And it's just another challenging piece of the landscape ahead of us. The one thing I can say, this will not impact the employer of record model, because the employer of record can choose to set rates in ways that the provider can't because they have less overhead. So there's another play for the employer of record model.
What about the overtime rule?
So the overtime rule would still apply in employer of record. Okay. Any other comments around direct support professionals or questions that I cannot answer?
Jesse, this is Abby again in Lenore. I just wanted to mention, the NCARF conference is, I erased it, I'm sorry, hang on. It's the 25th and 26th in Winston. And one of the tracks is basically for direct support professionals and networking for them and educational opportunities. And that is, I think I did see that on the Smoky website. There is a link.
Okay.
But I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that here because I know they love to have as many represented agencies and individual providers as possible. So again, that's the North Carolina Association of Rehab Facilities, and it is in Winston-Salem on the 25th and 26th.
Great. Thank you, Abby.
Jesse?
Anything else? Yes.
On that direct support there, and we're talking about this money, on 30 hours and insurance. In Ohio, do you have anything from Ohio that says that they've already been through that particular situation and how it's affected them, what we might be looking at?
They haven't been through that situation yet. No one has, because the law's not been implemented yet.
Well, I can only see gloom and doom for a while, if not forever now. Because if you've got those people you're training for CNAs and they never can get nowhere, they ain't going to come back.
Yeah.
Because there's no future for them, and it sure ain't good for the ones that we're advocating for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything you're stating has been noted numerous times. So we'll see how it plays out for sure, and we'll just try to keep the process informed as we can.
Jesse, I went on the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals website just a few minutes ago. There are probably 35 or 40 states who are already implementing this.
Okay.
But you can go on their website and NADSP, National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals, and there is a ton of information. But I also would note that every state's curriculum and program can be different. So North Carolina setting their own requirements, but they all have to be approved by this National Alliance. So we may require HIPAA, and someone require HIPAA, but as long as the National Alliance looks at the entire program and says, this meets our ethics and our guidelines, then they'll approve the state's program. So.
Okay. Great, Robin, thank you. And I'll send that link out to the group too.
I have a question. Sorry, I know you can't see me, but with this 30-hour-a-week minimum in order to not provide insurance for workers, do you expect for there to be an increase in their hourly wages? Because I don't see how you plan on maintaining workers when it's hard for them to do that right now. I mean, we struggle with the workers that are at the facility that I'm at right now to keep them on. We have such a high turnover rate that these people are seeing different faces all the time. Do you expect that to get worse?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes, we expect it to get worse. If those limits are put in place and providers make the choice to only work folks 28 to 30 hours, we expect that turnover would be greater.
Okay, so there's no talk in lifting like maybe the hourly rate to keep people on?
Actually,
The problem is that the rates do not allow a greater hourly rate in most cases.
Okay.
And there's providers are talking about it in different ways. We've been talking about it for over a year. And so it could go in a couple different directions. It could go a lower rate of pay or a flat rate of pay for a direct care worker so that we could go to the 40 or above 30 model so that we could give them benefits, or keep them at the same rate of pay at part-time without the benefits, so that or maybe looking at a slice of people that will get benefits and go half and half. So providers have been actively for the past year trying to figure out different
Okay, because pay is kind of horrible as it is.
Pay is horrible as it is, and
just speaking from experience.
Yeah. Until reimbursement rates go up, we're stuck.
Jesse, does the Medicaid expansion, how does that fit in the picture whenever the governor wouldn't accept that? How does that fit into all this picture we're talking about right now? Yeah. You know that for a topic by itself?
Yeah. I can't answer that question. That's above my
hey, grade
knowledge set.
Okay.
Yeah. So
move on, I guess.
DSPs will not be on the next agenda. No. Okay. Let's see. Registry of Unmet Needs. Just because we have persons here that are waiting for services or family members that are waiting for services, and this is such a big part of the system now because we have roughly, we have almost 1,000 people that are waiting for innovation services across our 23 counties. And we have other persons that are waiting for state-funded services. And the Registry of Unmet Needs is designed for LME MCOs to move persons into the waiver on a first-come, first-served basis. That's different in innovations than it's ever been statewide. Historically, people that were placed on the waiver based on level of need. So persons that had the greatest level of need would be selected to be moved on to the waiver. With the advent of managed care and the need to bring lower funded persons in along with higher funded persons to balance out the costs, first come, first served was used. We have 23 counties, and we pass out our slots, our routine allocation slots, based on first come, first serve on a per capita basis as we try to balance out the number of slots throughout the region. So currently there are counties that are historically overserved and counties that have been historically underserved. And it's our task as a managed care organization and LME, and the two things are different. The LME is the result of the contract that we have with the Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities and Substance Abuse Services, and the MCO piece is the contract that we have with the Division of Medical Assistance. We're expected to balance it out throughout our region. There are counties like Yancey County, which are definitely very overserved with regard to the waiver slots. And there's counties such as Polk or Caldwell. Caldwell is probably the best example of places that are underserved with regard to waiver slots. So when we have slots come available at the first of the waiver year, and the waiver year runs from August 1 until July 31, we move people off of the wait list or Registry of Unmet Needs into slots. The person is on the Registry of Unmet Needs if they're considered potentially eligible for a slot. To be considered potentially eligible, the person has to appear to meet the criteria of a person that would otherwise live in an institution for persons with intellectual disabilities. Institutions, good examples of those are J. Iverson Riddle Center. You have your community-based ICFs. There's one in just about every community represented here. Folks that would live in those settings are the persons that are potentially eligible for NC Innovations. As the person waits for services, there's options. They have Medicaid, they can receive respite through Smoky Mountain, LME MCO. The respite is 32 hours a month is what we're authorizing for folks. Folks that are waiting can also receive personal assistance, developmental therapy group, personal care. All of these services through state funds total anywhere from 7 to 19 hours a week of services that are available. So a person that's waiting for services, if their needs are great enough, can actually access close to about 25 hours of services a week. It's just finding the provider and getting linked to those services. Because in those situations, the person would not have a care coordinator. The provider, qualified professional, would complete the person-centered plan and submit that. Smoky is undergoing a real dedicated effort to clean up the Registry of Unmet Needs, to identify people that should no longer be on the registry because they've either passed away, moved out of state. In some cases, they moved to other parts of the state, or they have gone into institutions. Just a whole variety of reasons that a person should no longer be on the Registry of Unmet Needs. And as we contact persons to get better information regarding whether they should be on the registry of unmet needs, we're linking them to supports intensity scale assessments, better inform the system. And so we'll have the data too, once their name is up and it's their time to be considered for an innovation slot. So family members that are waiting will be getting contacted by supports intensity scale assessors. That assessor will set up an assessment with you. Once that assessment's complete, they'll also give you information about linking you to services if you're not already receiving them. So we're doing a good bit of outreach at Smoky that a lot of the other MCOs aren't doing yet, and we're just getting really good started at this. Because I know that the SIS team they've reached a lot of folks already since we got started about 3 weeks ago. And I've mentioned the B3 services and the expansion of state-funded services, those things that are available. We also have created, in conjunction with First in Asheville, a program for children with autism that are under the age of 9. This program is an emerging best practice, and it's similar to an intensive in-home service, because the goal of it is to train the parents to work more effectively with the young person with autism. It's called the PLAY Project. PLAY stands for Play and Language for Autistic Youngsters. It's developed by Dr. Richard Solomon. First has trained play managers. What they do, if you refer to the program, is they meet with the family, determine the goals, establish a schedule to meet with the family over the course of the year. There will be 10 3-hour sessions with the family. Each session is videotaped, and the person that's been trained in play analyzes the video. They come back for this next session. They review the video with the family, and then the family's videotaped again after they've had the opportunity to absorb the information that was reviewed. This is available to persons that have Medicaid or are eligible for state funds, or any person in our catchment area that meets the diagnostic criteria of an autism diagnosis prior to the age of 9. Which this is really exciting. It's available in all 23 counties. And if anyone wants more information, I have a fact sheet I can give you about that. And yes.
We have a comment in Silva.
Okay.
I'm not sure who came up with, this is Kelly from Westwood, not sure who came up with the PLAY project. It's a great project, but I think they need to think of the acronym. It's not person first language. It is not word person-centered.
Oh, I agree with you completely. And I made that comment when I was talking about it with another group. Yeah, the acronym's not person first language. Autistic youngsters, I know. Yes. They got caught, well, a doctor came up with the acronym.
Sorry, I'm a doctor.
Isn't that right, Robin?
Did you hear that?
Okay, but that comment's noted, but it's his program, and so we're kind of stuck with it. So maybe we should just call it PLAY and never say that, what it stands for, right?
Yeah, Jesse, who is he? Who is the person who developed it?
Dr. Richard Solomon.
I think Dr. Kelly would like to contact him.
Jesse, how did the individual here get a copy of that flyer? Is it at every site?
No, it's not at every site, but if anyone wants it, I can send the flyer to the whole group. I didn't include that flyer because it's not something that Smoky created. It's from First, and I didn't want to advertise really first. Does that make sense? It's just one of those things that I was thinking about that I probably shouldn't have been thinking about. But this program's available. Thank you, Michael.
It's awesome.
And if you want more information about it, you can definitely call our access department and ask for the flyer where I can give it to you. I've already emailed it to a few people. So one thing that we are working to do also is to send out notices to families regarding the date that the person was referred to the Registry of Unmet Needs, so they can start keeping that information in their records and have it.
That would be awesome.
And there's stuff that's happening. Some of the things that I heard in the listening sessions were ideas about holding the system more accountable so that when persons are born with certain disabilities, they automatically, instead of relying on the parent to contact the LME or NCO to get the person on the list, the CDSA, or anytime you get documentation of first date of diagnosis for certain disabilities, the ones where it's very clear that the person's eligible, like Down syndrome, certain cerebral palsy, those kind of things, as soon as the diagnosis dates exist, using that as the referral date instead of the date that some random case manager contacted the LME, MCO, or other thing like that. So those things, that's been voiced at one of the listening sessions according to Dave. Because I actually, before the Marion listening session, I ran into him at Hardee's and we had a burger together. And I learned that bit of information from him. Over my bacon cheeseburger, because I'm not very health conscious.
We have a question, Jesse.
Yes.
It's
Is this, you're doing the SIS assessments for the people who are on the waiting list, the Registry of Unmet Needs, for what purpose?
Because that's in the actual waiver document. It talks about that being a part of the screening process for innovations.
And then the screening is used in what way?
Well, it's just to have the document in place, because it's not anything that, the purpose of the screening is to ensure that the waiver can meet the person's needs in the community.
But the SIS doesn't reflect the actual.
The way they describe it to me is that it's just to be more thorough.
Well,
It was very.
the thing about this is,
But
it's not a cognitive or an adaptive assessment. It is a support need. It measures the need of support.
it's not totally accurate.
It's,
Or it's not.
yeah, it's, and I'm not going to argue about its validity or anything. And it's just one of those pieces that we're going ahead and getting it in place with family members that are on the Registry of Unmet Needs. Because eventually we'll have to have it, and we can use that data to inform the system some too, because more often than not, it's accurate. There's times when it's not very accurate, but it gives us good data that we do not have right now. It's definitely a lot better data than we get off the NC support needs assessment profile. And
It's better than you have, but it surely could make a whole lot better.
yeah, and I'm not going to debate that piece either, right? But it is definitely better than what we have.
I'm an IDB parent and I'm happy with it. Hi, Jesse.
I took it and it wasn't that bad.
But
Well, how long is it gonna take to get everybody on the waiting list? If you have 1,000 people on the waiting list, how long is it gonna take to have a SIS done? Because that is a timely process.
well, it is a timely process, but you see, at the same time, we know we're not going to get through a large number of people on the wait list, but next year, when we get our allocation of routine slots, that's one piece of information that will not have to occur for the person to move into the slot, because it will still be valid. Because the folks that we're contacting to do the SIS are the ones that are at the tops of the list in all the counties.
Well, if they got transferred from the CAP waiting list, they've been on it the longest, because I don't think everybody got transferred.
And that's a good possibility that everybody didn't, because I know that we've experienced some of those.
Yeah.
Because you do have the situation where you've got, first off, you have a list that was merged between Blue Ridge Center, Friend, Area Health, and Rutherford Polk, that became Western Highlands. You got the New River list, the Foothills list, which was broken up because Burke County broke away.
The information was old.
The Silver, or the Smoky, so you know, that's why we're going through and looking and seeing what we could find. And
Would that be a good thing to add on your communication too, or just to get the word out, because a lot of people don't know?
And I'll say that, too, is like the whole registry of unmet needs. I feel like that there is some education that needs to be done about that at a basic provider level, whether it's pediatrics, PSS, your different behavioral health type providers. I feel like there needs to be education about this. Because when you, as a parent, when you call DSS to get help for services because you don't know how to access services, the response I was given was to call the number on the back of your NC Health Choice card. That was DMA. I called DMA and got like around 10, 15 different people. Still didn't get the answer I needed. And finally got a lady that was willing to help me until I got the answer that I needed. So I think there's just a lot of basic education about these services and how to access services needs to take place at a grassroots level. Because people don't know. I'm on the mental health side of being a provider. I feel like that if anybody should know how to access these services, I should know it. But I had no clue, and I'm still waiting on my son to get services. And I placed a call to, like 2 months ago, and I'm still waiting for the NC SNAP assessment. I don't understand that. So I think that there should be some type of effort. I don't know how we do that, but I think just education to what is available would be good, because this is a different world that you're stepping into.
Yeah, we don't even understand it sometimes.
This county has,
Agree at, just last spring last spring at the Caldwell County, schools have a transition fair every year. And, I make sure that Caldwell Opportunities is represented every year, and there's several other agencies that come. It was amazing to me. This is when individuals who are getting ready to transition from the school system into our agency. And I had a family come and just start speaking to me and my staff. Obviously, 2 youngsters who, just by speaking to them, I knew were eligible for the Medicaid waiver are in our school system. And parents who are very involved had no idea what the innovations waiver was. I had to hand carry them over to Mary, the advocate, or is that her title? I'm not sure, and say, would you please help these people? Now that's a travesty, and that's all I have to say about that, because I might go to jail. But there's something wrong, and we need to start figuring out how we're gonna figure out what the people in our community need.
okay.
Sorry, but that's so off, that's just sad. And every chance I get, I bring it up. That's what I
Okay.
say about that, thank you.
Anything else
Hey,
on
Jesse.
that topic?
Yeah, Jesse.
Yes.
We might not get to the budget, but we sure getting some questions.
Okay.
This ordeal about the play program and the potential eligibility, I think you're leaving a big key player out here, and that's the school. North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, you just need to be in sync with these people, and I keep saying that because the schools are getting them before you get to them. It ought to be the other way around. And then you need to get on the same page, who's on first and who's on second and what's on third. Because all these agencies, I think you're duplicating a lot of things that needs to be cleared up. And one of the biggest things is diagnoses. They get into school, and the school won't serve them because they ain't got a certain diagnosis classified like the school wants it. Then the school throws it aside, and those kids suffer for years before they ever get services, and then y'all don't even know where they're at. So when you say potentially eligible, you think you need to go back to the school piece and find out with Department of Public Instruction. Let's go higher on the leg because this is a state-run system. We need to find out how to get the state Department of Public Instruction on the same page with Smoky Mountain, because I've said for years, Smoky Mountain, when you look at the number of people in the state, we're only serving a very minimal number compared to who's out here. And we might be serving more if they was educated to the point that we're talking about. So if I'm too broad, I'll narrow this. Or if you don't know what I'm talking about, we'll educate you.
No, I know what you're talking about there. Because I met you when I worked indirectly for the Department of Public Instruction.
Yeah, we're still having this talk today, so it ain't done no good.
I know.
Yeah, so let's change it.
You've changed my mind, Jerry.
All right.
Okay. And you know,
One question.
okay. Go ahead.
I'm very new to this. For a person that's interested in potentially getting their child on the registry for active, what would the process be? And how would I advise them to go about starting that process, looking into that and see if their child would be eligible?
Okay.
Where would they start?
Basically, well, it should start before we're even contacted, really. You should have an idea that the person has a diagnosis that makes the person eligible. And the diagnosis would be examples are autism spectrum disorder, intellectual disability, any of the levels of that, cerebral palsy, seizure disorder, Down syndrome. All of those are historically known as related conditions. And if the person has cognitive functioning that is 2 standard deviations below the mean, which typically means an IQ of 70 or below, or adaptive functioning in a related condition that is 2 standard deviations from the mean, which is the same on standard tests, then they should definitely be referred to the Registry of Unmet Needs. If you're not sure whether or not they should be referred to the registry, our access department can be contacted, and the person's name will be taken and their date of contact. And then they can be referred out to a psychologist to do a cognitive and adaptive assessment. So those are the first pieces. And I'm actually working on a document that we will be communicating this to people that clarifies it, because it's definitely a need, because there's not clear language or clear guidance about how to get someone there, and we're working on that piece. Okay?
I heard, real quick comment, I heard you say that after the SIS team assesses the individual, then they kind of link them to services. Is there any way that can happen before, not necessarily innovation services, just services in general, like, if someone does call the access line to get them on the registry of unmet needs, it needs to be, somehow there needs to be a streamlined approach for services based on whatever your diagnosis may be.
There needs to be some way that we're ensuring that people get linked to services.
Yes.
That is a void.
Available.
That is a void that exists in the system, because right now we rely on provider qualified professionals, and there's really no reimbursement for that. And that is a void in the system that's been recognized at the listening sessions. It's been mentioned, and we've recognized it within our own system. And it's one of those things we're trying to figure out how to proceed with. Right now, your option is to get certain support is to contact our family support specialist, and the one in your region can help you learn to navigate
Like, how do you even find out this stuff? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't know.
Well, and that's the kind of information that you probably should have gotten when you talked to Access, but she's talked to Access and she didn't really get that piece, so.
That's good information, because they would be able to tell you what providers are available in each region, typically for state-funded services, but you would have to call those providers to see if they can take new people, because they're overloaded every year. And so it would start that way, or they could connect you to the family partner here at Chico. He could talk to you and help connect you to some mental supports out in the community as well. And all of that should come through that.
Okay, now,
That's good feedback for us to go back and share.
so I'm going to end the discussion on that part and move on to the last agenda item regarding individual budget.
Yes, and we've got another question in one more.
Oh, okay.
Again, it's Abby, and I'm sorry from Caldwell. I have had, within the last month, it's amazing to me how many more calls I have had from frantic parents looking for services. And I automatically, I have the access number right there on my desk, and I'm a good girl, and I give that out. Then I always feel that I've lost that person just because I'm not a care coordinator. I am a provider of ADVP, and I have 6 day support, people that I serve. But what I was wondering is, in today's world of all